All right, Lethal Weapon, a year before Die Hard, and this was the action Christmas movie. And then, like I said, a year later, Die Hard came out. But you know, let's see what this one does. So, Lethal Weapon, I actually saw late. I saw late to the game. I saw Die Hard first, like I think like a little before, and then I was like, oh wait, there's Lethal Weapon. And then I think it was the TV show started coming out, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And so then I finally got around to sitting and watching it, and then I found out it was a Christmas movie, so I'm like, all right, I'll wait till Christmas. So I sat and watched it finally, and I was like, huh, that was pretty cool. I like that. And then come to find out it was done by Richard Donner. And I'm like, man, that guy just directed everything. I mean, he directed The Omen, which is a horror movie. He directed Superman, which is a superhero comic movie. He did this, which is an action drama or like an action thriller around Christmas time. And he also directed like The Goonies, which is a like adventure movie. So it's like, wow, that guy could direct anything. But it just sucks about Superman 2 though. But moving on. So what we have here is the story of Lethal Weapon it's pretty much like the, cop buddy stuff, but but they don't like each other at first, but you have Mel Gibson and Donald Glover, not Danny, jeez. But you have Mel Gibson who is playing cop who you can tell like he's dealing with his own stuff. His wife just passed away, and I can't say it because of YouTube, but he's thinking about committing a certain act. Can't say it because of YouTube. And then he's partnered up with Donald Glover, and the two of them have to, take down this like big like drug thing. So like I said, I saw this late to the game. I saw this after Die Hard, so I was already kind of used to those like edgier action movies of the 80s. And then I saw this, I was like, you know what? While this is it has its humor to it, this is fairly dark. This is pretty dark. Especially with Gibson's character, the fact that he's going through all this stuff. And, Glover is kind of trying to pull him away from that darkness. And to then, to the end of the movie, he finds the light and doesn't see the darkness anymore. And, then they made 3 sequels to this and then a TV show, which I actually have never seen any of the sequels or the TV show, but I've heard the TV show is actually pretty good, but just, behind the scenes stuff, not very good. But I was rewatching it. I was genuinely surprised because I was going like, I haven't seen it in a while. It's probably not going to be as good as I remember. No, it still holds up pretty well, actually. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, Gibson and Glover's chemistry together, I think is really, really well done. Because the issue that I have with some movies is, if they start out being, like they don't like each other and they just but they have to get along, and then they find something to connect to. A lot of it is kind of forced, but in something like this or 48 Hours or Midnight Run, where it's like, yeah, they don't really care about each other, more like Midnight Run, where it's like, yeah, they don't care about each other, but then they actually find something to connect themselves to. And so I think that chemistry works. And I think with that, plus the script, which done by Shane Black, I think the same year as Predator, mix that with Donner's direction, because before this he did The Goonies, and that movie had a huge cast and everybody had something about them that was unique, something to help drive the story. And everybody was memorable in that. So I think, combine all 3 of those aspects. They really did a really good job with this. And rewatching it, I was like, wow, this was actually a lot better than I remembered. So, highlights for me is, Gibson and Glover's chemistry together and the script. And also it gets pretty dark too, because I don't know why. I think for some reason I thought this was like PG-13, and then it gets to like certain scenes, with like, shootout scenes or a certain interrogation scene. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This is rated R. Oopsies. So, but I think, you know, it, it worked. To me personally, the script, it was kind of back when Shane Black was doing really good stuff, I think. And then, because he was doing stuff like this or Predator or the Monster Squad, which, you know what, it's a fun cheesy movie, but it's fun. But then, later on, and then he came back to Predator, it was like, dude, what are you doing, dude? Like, this is just ridiculous. So, but, this is also when, but this was back also when Richard Donner just had hit after hit after hit, and, like, he could almost do no wrong. And I think that him not doing Superman 2, it definitely gave him the chance to do something else. And for him to do something like this, it was like, all right, he's going back to like that grittier type of stuff, like The Omen, where, yeah, that movie's dark, little dated, but dark. When it comes to negatives, there's really nothing, really nothing negative about it, but to me, it doesn't have that kind of like rewatchability that something like Die Hard had. For me personally, I would prefer to watch something like Die Hard, or even something that's not entirely, action. It's more just the dialogue, the ref, where that one is just, it's all focused on the dialogue. But, with this one I would say every other couple of years, because most of these I'm like, all right, I'll watch that every like 4 or 5 years. This one I would say like, every like 2, 3, I would say. If I get, I'll watch Die Hard one year and then I'm just like, I don't really want to watch that. Let's watch this one. And I was like, all right, that works. And Die Hard 2, I know that it's Christmas movie, but personally I thought Die Hard 2 was just okay. But that's just me personally. So I'd watch this one over Die Hard 2. So if somebody said like, hey, let's not watch the original, let's watch 2, I'm like, I'd rather watch Lethal Weapon. So yeah, personally, this is a great for me. Like I said, I really can't find anything negative about it, but it doesn't, I don't think it has that kind of rewatchability kind of type that I would go for either like Die Hard or The Ref or any of those like kind of R-rated movies. So, but I really can't find anything negative. It's just that little Lynch thing. If it did have that, then yes, this would get amazing. But for me personally, it's a great. I still enjoy it, and one of these days I'll actually sit down and watch the sequels and maybe the TV show, because I've had some friends of mine and even some family that said they watched the show and it was pretty good, but just all the stuff that happened behind the scenes, that's a different story. But I was like, you know what, if the movies keep the same dynamic chemistry that these two have, then sure, I'll watch more of them, despite Mel Gibson's views on certain things, but that's a totally different topic for another day. And yeah, I still enjoy this. It's just, doesn't have that rewatchability that I think some other movies do, but still, it's a lot of fun, and yeah, surprisingly really, really dark.